Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs, and thank you for tuning back into St. Andrew TV, a cure for your Monday blues. I'm your host, Andrew, and today I have one question for everybody that is currently watching. What do you think I just pulled out of my pocket? Is it tree sap that's been dried? Is it wax? No, both those answers would be incorrect because this, believe it or not, is soup. And this soup can be transported in your pocket, which is what the video is titled today. This is a recipe that dates back to the early to mid 1700s, but was used all the way up into the 20th century. There's only 2 ingredients, but trust me, this is going to be a very difficult proposition from start to total completion. So if you follow me along, I'm going to show you how to make the soup you can put in your pocket. Now, as one might have guessed, with a recipe with only 2 ingredients, but a long, tedious process, the first thing that comes to mind is survival food. And this particular item was on the Lewis and Clark Expedition West, and they contracted around 200 pounds of this portable soup. From my research, this has about a 20 to 30 year shelf life because you are dehydrating essentially just the soup broth. This is, for all intents and purposes, a last-ditch effort survival food. For lack of a better term, if shit's hitting the fan, this is what's going to get you out of said jam. Did I unintentionally rhyme there? So the reason why I told you how much was contracted by Lewis and Clark and their expedition team is I want to show how many ingredients that it would take to get what was just in my pocket. This is probably 2.5 to 3 pounds of meat. And what you're going to want, means this is a survival food, is you are wanting cheap cuts of meat. And that is precisely why in front of me I have beef feet and cuts of beef neck. Now originally, they would have to do this over an open fire and a pot. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that in the modern times, unless you have a small fortune you're sitting on, I don't think you're going to sit and consistently move the ingredients around for the next 8 hours. So the modern day equivalent to that is putting it in a slow cooker, which I'm doing. Now, I will have to say that I made a batch previous to this, and this is the last miscellaneous pound that I have, so you're not going to get too much, but I am showing you the steps of how to do this to get ultimately what is in my pocket. And then at the end of the video, I will put it in some boiling water, add a little bit of ingredients, and you have some soup. Now that you have your beef neck and your beef feet in a crock pot, or if you so choose to put it over an open fire in a cooking pan, the next thing you need is water, your second ingredient, which you're just going to cover your beef feet and your beef neck until it is just over everything that you put in there. You don't want too much. And there we are. That is all there is to the first step. And buckle up because all the other steps are pretty easy. It's just tedious because there's a lot of time in between steps. My next step currently is to go plug this in, put it on low, and let it sit for the next 8 hours. And it is 10 a.m., so you should see me around 6 p.m. or if not, the very next day. So don't be surprised if I'm wearing a different shirt. Okay, you can see new shirt and it's a new day. This did cook in the crock pot for about 6 to 8 hours. Full disclosure, I fell asleep on the couch. That's why I didn't get to filming yesterday after it was done cooking. But we do have a product that allows us to remove the bone clean off of the meat, or the meat clean off the bone, however you choose to say it. What you're going to do is you are going to now scoop all the bones out of your newfound broth and your very, very soft meat. This part's easier said than done. And the reason why you want beef feet and beef neck is you want all the connective tissue to render down. That's what's going to allow you to do a project such as this in terms of making your own survival food. You want something with you know, the microfibers and everything to give you what you're ultimately trying to get. Also, we're doing this because ultimately, after we remove all the bones from this, we are gonna send this through a colander to get the big, fattier pieces out of our meat. You don't want a lot of fat in this because the oils in it are ultimately what we're trying to remove, and fat have a lot of oils in them. But you'll see further on how we are going to get essentially all the oils out of it, which is what you're going to start rendering down to make what I have in my pocket currently. If you do miss little chunks of bone, it should be caught in the colander. This is the primarily what I wanted to get out of there because it serves no use to us in terms of our current recipe. Now I would hold on to the bones because you could make both bone broth out of it, but that's a recipe for another day. The next thing you are going to do is you're going to grab a bowl with a colander. All right, so I've set my colander in the bowl here, and what you are going to do is try to get all the meat, all the fat, for the most part, into the colander, and you just want the liquid to remain in your bowl. So you pull the colander out, you just have liquid. I'll show you guys me dumping it so you can see how careful I'm going to be. As you can see, that is what we are trying to eliminate when we use the colander, and we have a bunch of really good meat left in the crock pot, or I guess if you're doing it old school, in your pan. I don't know how well you can see this without me dumping it all over the table, but it is at a very rough broth. There's still some bigger fatty pieces in there, which ultimately there is a step to eliminate that problem. But what we are doing currently is we have a very oily broth. And now we are going to let it sit because the part that you want has more volume than the part that we don't want. The oil is going to raise the top, and this is going to be as meticulous as it sounds. You are going to take a spoon or whatever utensil you have, a ladle, and you are going to consistently remove the oil from the top. You can accelerate this process by putting it in the refrigerator and everything will settle as need be. Just make sure when you remove it from the refrigerator that you're very gentle, because you don't want the part that you are trying to get out of it to start sloshing up. Then you got to let it sit for more time. This next portion will take a good amount of time. Putting it in the refrigerator will have it cool a little bit faster, but ultimately, when it gets to that point, I will show you that we are going to remove all of the oil that comes from this broth. All right, I took a picture because I'm not going to undo every nice thing that we've done here, but all the oil has come to the top and the picture should be right there. And this part, like I said earlier, is going to be as tedious as it sounds. You're going to take a spoon and you are going to carefully remove all the oil off the top. And yes, it'll be long and tedious, like I said. Now, I am not going to force you through all of this, so I will take all the oil off and then I'll show you the next step. But it'll take you about 10 minutes of just constant scooping and getting the oil out of there to get down to a darker layer, and that's going to ultimately be your broth. I will mention that you could leave this in the refrigerator for an extended period of time, where this would solidify and you could theoretically cut the piece off the bottom that you wanted to hold on to. However, I am trying to make this a little bit more historically accurate. I understand that I'm using a stovetop, and I am using the luxury of modern kitchen appliances, but I wanted to stay true to this. I wanted it to have essentially the same flavor that you would find in the early frontier era, even into the 20th century. So I am doing it as close to old-fashioned as humanly possible, minus the glaring issue of using modern kitchen utensils to make that happen. I'm getting towards the bottom here, and you will start to notice that if you start getting pieces of like a darker flakes in your what you're trying to pull, the oil, you're getting towards the bottom, and you're going to have to be very careful about exclusively only getting oil out on your spoonfuls. Anything more than that, you are starting to eliminate some of your finished product, which, like I said, there would be giant kitchens dedicated to making stuff like this, and they're using a hell of a lot more meat than I did today. And like I told you in the introduction, that little piece of, I guess, portable soup that I had already finished was rendered down from about 2.5 pounds of meat. So you have to be very meticulous with how you go about like removing the oil, because you are going to have, this is about 1.5 pounds of meat. You will probably have about 1.5 servings of portable soup when this is all said and done. That piece over there, that is just like concentrated bouillon, essentially. I could probably get 2 bowls of soup out of that, which I'm going to try to do when we taste test it at the end. That is all we have left. And you'll notice that there are some chunks, some bits, some pieces, whatever you want to call them, left in our little concoction. And that is where we get this cloth out. We are going to get every last bit of fat out of there, so when we put it back on the stovetop at a very, very low temperature, we are ensuring that there is nothing in there that can spoil. Now, like I said earlier, this will make about 1 serving size of your portable soup. All you do is get ready to dump it down in the bag. You can see that it's a bit soiled. I used this one to make my previous batch, and you are just gonna let it ride. Now, it won't come out tremendously fast. You know what we're gonna do, because I made a little error, we're gonna send that right back through this strainer here, because I made a little oopsie. Don't do what I did, but if you do what I did, at least I gave you an alternative to make sure that you don't lose any of your product. Just like that. And now everything that goes in to your pan here is going to be exactly what we're going to render down. And when you flip this inside out, you will notice that even though it went through the colander and you sifted out all the oils, how much stuff you actually don't even want in your portable soup when it's all said and done. After all that, and I would have to say that we're about on hour 10 or so, this is all that you're left with. If you can see that, it's going to be a very diluted shade of brown. And that's when you are going to go put it back on the stovetop or back over the fire, and you are going to render it down. This so much, you'll probably render it down for about an hour to an hour and a half. And that's when you're going to have parchment paper with a pan ready. Or if not, you are just going to leave this set out and let it dry. But before all that, you are going to let this render down into about 1/4 of what it started as. So it covers the bottom of the pan right now. I'm looking for it to cover very minimal, and it should thicken up, it should darken up, and it should come out as more of a melted wax consistency. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're going to put on the parchment paper. And before we get any further, you are going to have to monitor this for the next hour or 90 minutes. You do not want this to burn. So if you had any ideas of getting it on the parchment paper and putting it in the oven, no, it's going to have to dry organically. The best way that I did it to speed up the process is let your toaster oven run for a little bit, turn it off, and just have it set in about 120 degree heat, which, if you know where I live, that's not out of the equation. That will not burn it, but it will speed up the process tremendously. So I'm going to go put this over the stovetop and render it down, and I will bring in all the necessary things to show you how to put it on the parchment paper, and then it's just a waiting game. I didn't state it, but this needs to be at extremely low heat to prevent it from burning. I don't think I stated low heat. You're going to monitor this for an hour to 90 minutes at extremely low heat and constantly keeping an eye on it. So now we are going to render it down. All right, so this just came off the stove top. I gotta make this happen quick because it is already losing heat, but you're gonna see a little bit come out on the parchment paper, just like so. And I have a rubber spatula to ensure that I get everything out of here the best that I can. That is about maybe 1.5 bowls of soup, because that is just straight up concentrated beef broth that has no moisture in it. You're going to let it dry, and it's going to become like a little wax cube. That's what it looks like right off of the fire. That is what you're going to let sit for, I don't know, I think I let the other one sit for 6-8 hours to ensure that all the moisture is out of it and it feels like a piece of wax is what I can describe it as. I would say for this means you didn't see any portion of that. It's going to be very liquid based when you put it in there, and I got the timer set. I think I got 56 minutes, and that's less than what you'd expect, but we had very little in terms of what the broth looked like, so it rendered down a little bit quicker. Fortunately enough for us, this is going to dry. You can peel it right off the parchment paper, and from my research, this will be good for, considering how well you did all the steps, it should be good for 20 to 30 years. I don't expect anybody to have this sitting around for 20 to 30 years, but just know it is a survival food. Now, I am going to grab the one that is already completed. I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to bring some boiling water in here. That is how you activate it and make your soup broth. And I also have another survival food with it. After we do the initial taste test, I'm going to dunk some hardtack in it and see if it will spice up the dish at all. Theoretically, we're going to let this cool for 6 to 8 hours, get all the moisture out of it, and then we will come activate the little concoction that we made and give it a little taste test, and then we'll add some more survival food in terms of hardtack to see if we can give us the illusion that we're actually having like a bowl of stew in our trek out west, I suppose. Unfortunately, we used that whole piece that we already had completed, but I went and fixed my little error and got it all dissolved into the boiling water. So I guess my little mistake that I made was put this in boiling water and just keep stirring it around until it dissolves completely. And now it actually looks like broth. I don't know how well you can see that, but now it actually looks like broth. And it tastes like broth too. The first thing I will note is it's not as salty as one would think. It's actually not too bad. I wonder how the hardtack tastes with it. Oh, it's not bad at all. It's bland, but you could be eating worse if you were in a survival setting. I would have to say that if this was just a base and you did get like a fresh bison or a fresh deer or something and you threw meat into it, it would certainly satisfy the void of not having like processed or traditional broth at your disposal. I guess like bouillon, or I'm not even sure how far bouillon goes back, but it gives you a base of what you would want a stew to taste like. As a standalone, it's very bland. There's no flavor to it. It's warm, and it has a hint taste of beef. It doesn't have an overwhelming taste of beef. It is just broth. No salt, no pepper. It is very plain Jane, and I can see where The British military would give this to wounded or incapacitated soldiers. There's not too much to it. I can see where they would sip on this, and you're getting your caloric intake, but it is extremely easy on your stomach. The hardtack certainly gives it some more, volume. You're eating more than just sipping on the broth, but it's not bad. It's not good either. It's very vanilla. I wish there was vanilla flavor in it. It would at least make it exciting. Outside that, that was a very long-winded project for, a survival food. I have more sitting there, so maybe I'll activate that one over a campfire or something. But that concludes today's video of how to make portable soup, or the soup that you put in your pocket, whatever I put in the title. Like I said, do not do this if you do not have the means to be very attentive to it for at least 14 hours. And I even took some shortcuts with the 21st century technology that made this a little bit easier to deal with. However, it is very enjoyable. This is an old frontier food. This is legitimately food that Lewis and Clark ate on their expedition out west. This predates Lewis and Clark by 50 or so odd years. So I appreciate everybody getting this far in the video. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed today's video, or leave me a comment stating what you liked, or tell me what I should do next. I have a Patreon that is linked down in the description field below, or it should be appearing at the bottom of your screen here. I do not take ads nor sponsorships on this channel to ensure you that the content is organic and has no influence from any external forces. The influence that I receive is from the beautiful community members that I have, or it comes from my own brain. So if you'd like to continue to support the videos and the content that you see here on St. Andrew TV, please feel free to go over to the Patreon and leave a donation. However, feel no obligation, only if your means allow you to do so. The content will forever remain free here on YouTube. By you liking, subscribing, and sharing, that is more than enough support for me. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed as of late, but for those of you who have come across this video or this channel, maybe because you like Wild West content, maybe you like old frontier content, especially when it comes to cooking. Or maybe you would like me to keep it in the same time period and do some more early frontier cooking or crafting. There's only one way to find out if I do such thing, and that's by hitting that subscribe button, because you're a daisy if you do.